What is going on, RotoGrinders? Welcome back to the Morning Grind. Once again, this is Dean filling in for Stevie TPFL, who's crushing those NASCAR streets. Once again, we're doing a DFS profile, not so much a DFS profile, but an introduction. Welcoming somebody to RG, the RG family. We're going to bring in, I've been practicing this one all day. Set it in front of my mirror like 5 different times, and it's going to be tricky, but let's make it happen. It's Tyler Tamboline, a.k.a. ToeTagginTambo. Tyler, welcome to RG. Welcome to the podcast. And I don't know, that is a mouthful for sure. All those T's, it's kind of tricky for me.
Yeah, alliteration's my thing. Thanks for having me, Dean. I appreciate it, and I'm more than excited to be here. This is awesome to be able to have the introduction and then hop on this right away with you and sort of go through a little bit of the background and what's to come with me at RG.
Yeah, so I'm checking out your resume. If you guys are not aware of Tyler specializes in PGA and NFL. He will be doing PGA and NFL content here at RG. The resume is as follows. Get comfortable. It's a lot. 2-time NFL DK Live finalist, King of the Beach, not just once, but twice, 2017 and 2018. A DK finalist for the Fantasy Golf World Championships as well. As far as his actual ranking here at RotoGrinders, he's ranked 139 currently. His Player of the Year ranking is 65. Specific to golf, which, again, he'll be doing a ton of golf content here, and his podcast will be here as well, which we'll talk about in just a second. Out of 10,378 people, Tyler, you're currently 11th, beating STL Cards. STL Cards is 12th. Throw some shade at him. That means you're better, right? No, I think it's like 19 or 18. I was looking at it as well, too. So, that's a pretty impressive number for sure as well. You're telling me, actually, 3 times you've been in the top 20 as far as PGA Millie Makers. Of course, there's a Millie Maker right around the corner, which you will be getting content on as well. You finished 3rd in NFL Millie Maker. And most importantly, well, all your content's going to be here now, but you're bringing along your Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast, which I told you this pre-show, full disclosure. I don't know golf very well, so I've never listened, but I hear it's a fun listen, and I think the name is not misleading. It's not ironically titled. You guys have some fun in that show, and of course, you give great content as well. So, Tyler, welcome to the RG family. It's a very impressive resume. And also, I wanted to just say, tell the people, if they're not aware, what is the deal with the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast? And, tell us where we can find it now in the RG family.
Yeah, so it's a podcast my boy Kenny Kim started quite a while ago. We had Zach Woods, Brad Messer-Smith on there. It's, a couple different hosts along the way. I sort of lucked into it on the path of, Brad was the second host of the show, and he was going back to get his master's. I'd been on as a guest, had some pretty good feedback, tried to bring some energy, little bit of an engagement as far as, strategy process, how I'm playing GPPs and having success in them. And they said, hey, do you want to come on as the new co-host? And I jumped at the opportunity. So super excited as well to bring that across. It's news that's going to come out when this drops, which now today you guys are listening is Monday. And it's going to have Kenny Kim, myself, the same podcast you're used to, free, everything all the same. But it is going to be sponsored by RotoGrinders and hosted on the RotoGrinders podcast network.
And if you guys stick around for the entirety of this podcast, you will learn about a promo. Give them a little bit of a tease. What are they going to learn later on in the show?
Big giveaway. So at the end, we'll talk about what it is and how they can win it. And then, Kenny and I will also have an intro pod coming out this week, probably tomorrow. Again, this is Monday. This is coming out, so it'll be Tuesday, with some of the talks of what we're going to be doing. If we're looking to change anything up on the pod, if you guys want something different from us. And then what I'll be doing here at RG beyond what you and I are already talking about today, in case they somehow missed this show, they can circle back.
How long has that Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast been going for? And how long have you been a part of it specifically?
I've been there about a year and a half now. And, Kenny and Brad were 2.5, 3 years before that. And then Zach and Kenny started it before that. So it's been around, this is year 5, I believe, total.
How did you get involved in DFS just in general? How long ago did you find it? How long have you been, I certainly recognize your name. I've seen you at the top of leaderboards before. How long have you been grinding?
Really grinding probably 4 or 5 years now. If you go back, the profile, I guess, was created in 2014 because FanDuel still shows that. And I did actually start with FanDuel. It was sort of the thing back then. I kind of just stumbled upon it. I was playing season long. I was big in season long football, $100, $200 leagues and playing in those and having some fun with the boys. And, got a little bit tired of just arguing about who's right all the time. And, if you're no way to make money on it. I've always been sort of a stats numbers guy, wanting to get behind it and find a way to do it. So when I found DFS, it was like the lights opened up, heaven up top saying, here you go, because it was a fact you could put the money in, have a chance to prove yourself and win. And there was a lot of strategy to it, right? It's a puzzle. So I love games and theory and all that sort of stuff and being able to outthink and get that stuff. The Survivor guys, outwit, outplay, outlast. That's sort of the feeling that I was looking for. And that's what it brought to me. So I started with FanDuel. And it did not start well, I will say that, but it turned around and I, just kept grinding away, and now here I am.
A couple of things. I pulled up your profile here at RotoGrinders, and it was pretty interesting. In the forums, the forums live forever. The internet is forever, and you were, STL cards. I mentioned STL cards, and I was just going to take a playful jab at him, at you being one spot above him. But it's just, 3 years ago, he did an AMA and asked me anything, and you were asking him about, best advice for getting to a live final, and cards took the time to answer a bunch of questions. It's great to kind of go in here as far as the forums here at RG, and it's just funny how, life has come full circle. You've been to live finals, and hey, you're currently ranked higher than STL cards by one spot. It's just kind of wild. I want to get your journey in that. And you mentioned season-long football. First of all, that the people can't tell, it pops on a couple words. You probably think you don't have it, but you have an accent. I'm sure I have an accent too. We can tell you're Canadian. I heard it on about. Right. Is there DFS? Have you play like season-long Canadian Football League? Is that something? Is that a thing or no?
As people will get to know me and even the RG team, most people would say this that know me quite well, is I'm way more American than I am Canadian. Like I'm not a hockey fan. I think, it's no disrespect. I think Canadian Football League is what it is. I'm happy for them, but it's, these guys work part-time. It's not the best athletes. Let's just say it in a nicer way, but I'm all about the American League stuff, right? NCAA football, trumps any of that stuff for me. And then obviously NFL being the big leagues, that's what it's all about when it comes down to football. Hockey, I just never got behind. When I was a kid, my mom had said to me, you can play hockey, which is expensive, don't got a lot of money, getting by just fine, but not like you got a choice. You can play basketball and baseball and play in two sports, summer and spring, that type of thing, and fall and winter, whatever. Or you can play hockey and we'll try and grind it out there and, skates and lessons and all this stuff. And I said, forget it. I like basketball and baseball. So I rolled with those two sports.
What were your basketball and baseball comps? What was your game like?
Pretty good. I was a point guard. I played high school basketball. So, that's sort of when that dream ended, and really was a bench player for the first year, and then sort of sixth man and get to come off and do that. So that was kind of, something I loved, but baseball was, my good sport. I actually got behind the role of catcher, which nobody seemed to want to play. And I just loved it because you sort of control the action. You're the leader out there, throwing guys out, telling the pitcher what you see, what's going to happen. Got into it, pretty good. And then, just a lot of lingering injury, knee injuries, things like that. I've had an ACL replacement just from random, pastime playing these sports and whatnot. So, I still enjoy them, but that's sort of the background and history on it.
Are you a Blue Jays fan? I know you're currently in Alberta, which is, Canada's a big country and you're far away from Toronto, but de facto, would you just become, because that's the only Canadian team? How does that work?
More of a Raptors fan, well before the situation with Kawhi and winning and getting it all done. Definitely still got to cheer for them. The biggest thing is, though, in Canada, Dean, is you can pick whoever you want, because we don't really have, if you're a hockey fan and where I'm at, just outside of Calgary, you sort of pick the Flames, and the guys up north from us a little bit are Edmonton Oilers, and that's sort of the breakdown. But I don't care about that. Like I said, I'll go to the games for some entertainment, some excitement. There's nothing like the Red Mile and some playoff hockey when it comes down to it. But when it comes to sports, I'm a big long-term since 97. I'm a Lakers Kobe guy. So, tough year this past year, obviously with Kobe, but always been a Lakers fan. I stick with my teams, and I've always been a Ravens fan. So since I got into the NFL, I've been grinding away with those guys, and I sort of love their, tenacity, their power, strength, defense, all that, get behind it. And now with Lamar, that's just been huge for us. And last year was quite a disappointment the way it ended, but definitely excited for the future and some of the prospects that we picked up in the past.
What's the Red Mile? You mentioned, is that something they do in Calgary? The Flames?
Yeah, it's 16th Ave is a big street downtown Calgary. It's the busiest street, and it's where all the party and the bar scene and all that stuff is, and people head down. And during the playoffs, everybody wears red, and that's, you go inside the sea of red, the sea being, for Calgary, and they put that in the stands, and everyone's wearing red, and then it just escapes out into the parking lot and then into the bar scene, and just it's a sea of red. So the Red Mile is what they call it.
Yeah, so you don't really love hockey, but you like the partying that's involved in hockey.
Little less now. I'm getting old, Dean, but yeah, I do like that aspect much more. The games are exciting, Understood. But it's like I guess what happened was they almost won a Stanley Cup, got robbed, and then ticket prices like tripled. And even though they didn't win the cup, the prices are still up there. So they charge quite a bit. And like I said, for me not being that interested, I just don't care that much. I'd rather go to the bar and watch the game versus go to the actual arena and be in there.
Is that the Jerome McGinley years? I don't know hockey very well.
It would be. Okay. It was somewhere back then and around then. Like that is who it is that, the run went with.
Yeah. But you mentioned playing season long, fantasy, and you're throwing your $100 in and all that. And I'm not sure if you have a similar experience that I do. Like I still play with my high school, college friends and playing years, and you got to keep playing in those leagues. You got to keep that league alive. But, it's funny. My friends will text me on Sunday and say, "Oh, you got so lucky because Zeke got this touchdown at the last second." And this stupid season-long league with my friends that I don't really care about. It's week 7. I'm gonna be 4-3 or 5-2. It doesn't matter. But it cost me like $3,000 in DFS. And they're like, "Oh, you got so lucky," and you can't like. How do you deal with that conversation? Have you had that conversation with your friends? It's like, no, I wish that didn't happen. Maybe I'm just giving flashbacks of my own.
I'm anti-sweating season long all the time. I only play like I've cut it right down. I'm in like the smallest leagues. Just my brother and his buddies have a league, and then one of my best friends and their league. And I've got the championships there behind me. I got the belt and the old school trophy up top there with my King of the Beach trophy, where I took down the leagues. I got lucky, but the bottom line is it's like you said, there's weeks where you're anti-sweating it. They're like, man, if you get this CMC touchdown, I'm going to be pissed. I'm like, I actually don't want it because it's about to cost me $10K, in this one spot drop in this tournament that I'm in. So I'm actually with you on this one. You can take this week, pal.
The value of talking smack to your friend about week 5 or week 7 of some stupid like $100 league is not worth $10,000 to you?
Sometimes not. No, normally not.
It's funny. I was going to ask about that belt. We'll talk about the King of the Beach in a second. You've been there several times, and I believe, is that a 3rd place belt? Is that what we're talking about? That's what we're looking at?
The belt's from a season-long league this year. The boys picked one up. I thought it was pretty cool, so I really wanted it, and I'd been trying to win it, and I got it this last year. But the football trophy up there that's sort of in that shape, that's a 3rd place trophy, which was a bit of a stat sweat at the end down in Key West. When I went down, and I met Dan Bach there that year. That's when I sort of met him, and we got to go down there and have some fun. And yeah, that was a little bit of a sweat on the last day. I was only winning by like 1.5 points. And mainly, the difference in the money wasn't huge. I think it was 50 down to 40, but it was more about the wanting to get that podium finish and get that trophy. So if you weren't going to get first, it was E. Hafner that year who sort of blew out the field by like 30, 40 points. Showed up at the last half hour, had a couple, I think he had a drink or two because he had a newborn that had just arrived, so he was taking it easy, and then picked it up and won. And so cool to see that for him. He was a really good guy, and to see him show up and get that number 1 trophy. But I just wanted to get something at that point.
He was sweating it in his hotel, or maybe he didn't join the party till the last half hour. How cool is that?
Yeah, I believe it was a newborn situation, so he's there for his wife, which got to be there for the wife. I got a little one on the way. I've already got a daughter who's 3, got a little boy on the way, so sort of. I understand that fully, the family life, and I'm all about that. So he did the right thing in the end and still picked up the trophy and the money.
Oh, it's a good time to say that we're not just on the podcast here. We're also on YouTube if you guys want to watch the visuals. And I don't know if our producer, Devin, actually is framing your trophies, but they are there. I can confirm. They might be out of frame as of right now, but you got several trophies on display. We're rocking the belt. That looks like a Super Bowl replica trophy. Is that what I'm seeing as well?
It's kind of like a mini replica unit there. Yeah, again, it's a smaller league. It's just more to the boys that say, well, you're so good, you can do this at DFS. Can you come win a seat? I'm like, it's the opposite, bro. Like I'm playing against guys that are dominating and on the highest level, and I'm trying to beat them. So trust me, my focus is not on this league, but I'll draft with you and let's do it.
We'll backtrack in a second, but since you mentioned it, talk to me about the King of the Beach and meeting Dan Bach. Was this the time that he was doing – I know there were sometimes he would go there and do some interviews. Did you happen to get accosted for an interview, or you just kind of met him at the bar, or what?
No, that year I just met him a little bit, like, got to hang out, whatever. The year before, you mentioned the cards thing earlier when I asked him, sort of, but that the year before I had been, in the way the King of the Beach works is it breaks down, like it was used to be 200 down to 50 or whatever, or 75 get to go. And then it moved down to like 180 down to 50 get to go. So the first year I was in like top 10 all day. And in the afternoon, I had 2 injuries before half that cost me, and I dropped to like 53rd and didn't quite get in. So I was really disappointed. Grinded the next year, got back, ended up to get down there, ended up meeting Dan, bunch of good guys from the industry, Hefe, a couple other guys that were down there that you sort of and get to see them go on runs, which is awesome. If you're not one of the trolls out there and you're cheering, you should be cheering for people that if you're out of it, you want to cheer for the others, the good guys to be able to get a win. So someone's taking it down that and that was sort of what it was all about. And got to meet him a little bit, but I was fortunate enough to make it back the next year in 2018. And that's when I met Cal, and Dan happened to be there again. So it was just cool to link up with them, go out, party a little bit, have some fun, and then really get to know him a little bit better. And that's sort of where it's led to now.
Also, I imagine you were excited to get out of Canada in December and go to Key West.
Always good. Yeah, that was probably the second disappointment the first year when I was that close. I think it was in Bahamas then. I was really wanting to get to that one, and it just didn't work out at that time. So it wasn't meant to be. And again, it all worked out in the end, so I'm happy with where it ended up now.
How did you find DFS? How did you discover it? You see a commercial or something or what?
Yeah, they were doing so many commercials, and even I think, like, I don't know if they were doing it because Yahoo definitely wasn't into it by then, but it was, being on Yahoo fantasy sites and ESPN fantasy sites, somewhere those ads were coming across that I was just like, well, what is this all about? Is this real? Like, you got to dig into it a little bit. There was,
Is it
I think at
legal?
that time there was like Draft Street with snake drafts and everything there, and I was trying to, find what worked, and yeah, like I said, it didn't start well. I actually had a podcast, the perfect lineup I've done in the past with Jason Baumgartner, and we talked about this, but I'm not the guy that says, I deposited $100 and never look back. I deposited like 5,000 and lost it along the way, slowly, not all in one day or anything, but I was losing, putting $100 a day, just kept losing. Catch your little break where, keeps you excited that maybe this could happen, could be true. But I was really grinding and trying to get a hold of people, like, talking about multi-entering. I was trying to like multi-hit up guys to be like, can you help me? Do you want to mentor? Like, I just want to get better, right? I think there's always someone out there that'll help you get better. And that's kind of why me at RG, that's what my goal is my passion's, grinding DFS, helping people get better, teaching, coaching, developing, all that sort of thing. And that's why it's going to be fun to be here.
You're here to pay it forward.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's funny you said it because, like, again, I was looking at the whole STL cards, took the time to answer your questions, how to get to a. He was saying, I think his answer was he was giving like a realistic answer. He's like, well, it's really hard to get to a live final, and you're like, all right, I'll get the 3. How about that? As far as our path, did you remember the time you won the live final? Do you remember? Is it like a sweat of some sort?
When I got into it, that year, I don't really remember, to be honest. I got the hardest time and the worst memory for that. I remember exactly what happened the year before when I didn't get in. And so it's kind of like a bad beat story where you don't remember it. But yeah, the live final itself was just basically Todd Gurley. I remember all afternoon, and he was just starting to go nuts. And every time he touched the ball, that's when he was in his prime and really crushing it. It sounds like he should still be in his prime, but we know what happened last year. But anyway, he was just getting there, and every, looked like every carry was for 4 or 5 yards, and it's just like waiting for the game to be over. And then finally it ended. And I just couldn't be more happy that it was over.
Now, this was on your Twitter, and I was checking out your Twitter before the show. For the record, by the way, it's so wild. Todd Gurley's only 25. He seems like he should be so much older.
So I felt awkward saying that, but it's so true.
Well, the life of a running back, that's unfortunate. That's how they go. They kind of use them up and throw them out. It's rough. Get your money while you can there, Todd. Yeah, where was it? Oh, yeah, so I saw a video. Is this where he intentionally took a knee at the 1 yard line?
Oh, that was
Or was that a different time?
That was a different time. That was the year after. That was 2018. And that was the whole room went nuts because he was, should have ran it in, but he just kneeled it and basically sat on it. I should say, didn't kneel it. He sat on it, and everyone's like, oh, and then the funny part, I remember like a guy smashed his phone, Siege is in the video yelling, going crazy. And then like, what an idiot or something. And then the next thing there's still like 1:07 on the clock. So they really had no choice. And they were on the 1, like it was just a dumb spot to do it. So he just ran it in the next play anyway. So it was just like a crazy sweat to watch. I wasn't really in the mix at that point, but it was everyone sort of anti-sweating him, thinking they were safe, to then he's in and they weren't safe. And all the guys before that were worried that he was going to get in. It's just hilarious to watch in person. You saw the room explode.
You said you struggled at first. Was there anything you can kind of sort of point to that kind of turned it around? Is it basically asking a lot of smart guys, like, give me your tips, and just sort of putting them all together? Or is that sort of the crux of it?
I would say that, some for sure that. I mean, a lot of people helped along the way, like you said, just cards hopping in to even answer those questions, and other guys for sure that too many to mention. But I think the bigger thing is just sort of, you do got to grind through it a little bit and recognize there is a process to it. You got to sort of pay your dues or whatever you want to call it, and put the time in. But the content consumption, that's what sort of my thing is. I read everything on Twitter. I get podcasts, and I know there's information overload and paralysis by analysis and whatever, but that's what you'll get over time, I think, with experience, where you're able to sort of sift through that and find sort of what you want to stick with as far as information goes, and what your, guiding principles are for how you want to make your stuff and go forward when you're building a lineup or a set of lineups or a player pool or whatever it might be.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, an interesting thought, and just like to like acknowledge that maybe I'm not necessarily the smartest person in the room, and be able to listen to some smart people, and knowing what you know is super important, but also being willing to concede that you maybe don't know something, which is probably just as important. And you talk about taking in content, and a lot of times I'll take in content from smart guys, and I'll be like, that is a great point, but I'm going to go a different route. I respect that, and also just I suppose for ownership and for leverage and things like that, it's important to know what's being pumped out there and ways to take advantage of that. It's probably not things you're thinking of when you're first starting playing. Like, I never considered ownership when I played 8-9 years ago, whatever it was.
Right.
a lot of us sort of advanced and our thought process on things. I used to be like a huge BBP truther. I know you're not a baseball guy. I don't think you're a baseball guy so much when it comes to DFS, but that is more of a back burner thing for me now. So your biggest, earliest sweat, was it a queue of some sort, or was it just a regular contest? Your first big takedown?
My first big takedown was after that sort of $5,000 downswing. I actually started in the daily world. I was playing with NBA. Even though I was into NFL season long and all, it just wasn't around. And that's why I think it was as that season was ending, that season long and NFL season was ending, it was sort of like ads, like, here's where you can get into DFS. Here's what that's all about. Here's what DFS stands for. Found RotoGrinders, just started seeking out information to try and get, into this and get better at it, as we talked about. And, that's where I went down. And that same, strategy just kept plugging away. And it was the NBA Slam. And I couldn't find the article, but RotoGrinders did an article on it. But it was basically saying, how I took it down. And it was, a last minute swap with Michael Carter Williams. He wasn't supposed to play. And I had him at like 3%. He went off for like 55 FanDuel points. And I took down the 25. It was a $20 or $25 slam for 25,000. And I had like 3 entries in it. So it was really nice ROI, $75. Flip to that. But I mean, it's the same story. No one wants to really talk about it. But, like I said, down 5K, you hit 25. Yeah, you're up 20. But that's where people get their bankroll to get started. And then you just got to have sort of some sense of not blowing it all and just don't get too out of your comfort zone. Don't go start playing 1Ks because you took down a 20K score. Like, do what works, right? Stick to your process, keep going. And a lot of people, trust the process. I think to me, it's more trust the progress, where, if you're seeing progress, trust in that. And you're doing things to get there, but those are going to take time. Nobody, gets on a sports team and normally becomes the best player the first year, or, starts their own business and it just blows up in year 1 to way beyond but it can happen. It does, but understand that's a little bit more rare. And there is going to be some time and some tuition you got to pay your dues as you go along. And like you said it with the live final, miss the first year, get in the next 2. So you just got to grind away and keep at it and stick to your process.
MCW really dates that story, by the way.
It does. For sure. I think it was 2015 or 16. Yeah.
He was great on those terrible 76ers teams. I don't know if that's the year.
That's the year. Yeah.
Yeah. He was an excellent DFS player for sure. So any extravagant splurges? Did we buy anything after you for 25K, or is there anything are you just going to like put it in the bankroll or put some aside?
That was sort of just, not really making a bunch of money back then, still working my way up, with the, getting ready to start a family. I think around then was maybe my wedding, right? Because I think I've married about just over 5 years now. So that's sort of the situation at that time, blow it all in a wedding. But my wife will say it's worth it. So that's all that matters. As long as she's happy, she's very supportive, and that's been good for me. But I think that was all I spent it on at that time. There's been some other wins and purchases along the way where, I bought like basically things to make the sweat better, a bit more TVs, 75-inch, 110-inch projector. You want to get some of the bigger toys to have a better way to sweat it. That's about it.
Also, that's 25K American.
Yeah. That's like $1 million. That's like $1 million Canadian.
At least. That's $1 million loonies and toonies as far as I can tell.
Exactly. Loonies and toonies.
Yeah. And this is probably not the route to go, but I don't think no taxes. I'm pretty sure it's tax-free. I don't know. Yeah.
Yes.
That's good. Beautiful. That's a nice,
not complaining.
Oh man, you mentioned your wife. You mentioned the wedding night. Your avatar picture is a picture from your wedding night. So tell us what's going on there, because I asked you pre-show, I'm like, are you like in the karate? Is this an MMA thing? You have I didn't realize. I thought it was like a, I'm not sure what the term is that you wear around your head.
White belt, but you thought I was a white belt, Dean.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah.
No, it's actually a funny story because it was from my wedding night. And what I absolutely did not want to happen is, the ting, 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 where everyone's hitting their glasses and all that. So I said, forget it. We're not doing that game. I was I'm pretty upfront, pretty direct guy when I speak to people, and it's not in a rude way. I try and just be who I am. And sure. People normally can appreciate that. But I said, listen, guys, we're going to have fun with it. So we put down, stick with the golfing theme. We put down one of those mini putt, like retractables. You hit the putt and shoots it back to you. And we set the putt up at like 5 feet. And we said, if you want to come up all night long and make a putt, you can putt it in and we'll kiss. I said, if you make the putt, if you miss, you buy us each a shot. And now's a dumb idea because I have a lot of people, a lot of friends and family that apparently aren't very good at golf. And so, a lot of people missed, got a lot of shots into me. And the tie went on backwards. The story is history. You can see my mouth is just wired. I don't really know, what went on the rest of the night, but it was a good night. It was a fun night. A lot of people said we had a good time.
Your wife had fun. That's the most important thing, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
What kind of shots are we taking? Hopefully nothing that's like 120 proof, because that can get ugly in a hurry.
It was pretty bad. Yeah. I think it was a lot of whiskey shots and, sour jacks. Some of them were a little bit smaller, a little bit easier on you, but yeah, it wasn't fun. Like I said, and then some of them you just don't know. The only one I declined and always decline is tequila. Some people hate on that, but I'm not a big tequila guy. I don't really like that.
You and me both. We've all had a bad tequila story one time.
Bad experience. Exactly. That's what it is. That's exactly it.
I moved on. We broke up years ago. It was an ugly breakup.
Exactly. I'm happy about that breakup.
So you mentioned your wife as well. Talk to me about the balance of, how does this affect everyday normal life as far as making lineups, as far as DFS? Does it alter date night? Does it alter what time dinner may or may not be? And I know you're doing golf and NFL mostly, which the times are sort of different. I'm sort of thinking like the 7:00 Eastern. Of course, yeah. We also talked pre-show. You've been all over the place the last couple of months with the NASCAR and the esports and MMA, and I believe you've been playing some. What's the last
everything?
What's
Rocket League and League of Legends, all stuff I thought I would never in my life. I didn't even know half them existed, let alone put money on them. But I really don't sweat them. Like I don't really watch them, so I just put the money in and then see what happens when I wake up. It works out good. I'm on the West Coast, so as we mentioned, but you can sort of put the lineups in, go to bed. I can't really stay up for like KBO. I like it. I think it's cool that you can play it, and it's a good to have another sport for everybody that wants to grind or is missing the MLB grind. But I haven't really been on the daily sports. And just to answer your question, I mean, my wife is Megan. She's extremely, extremely supportive of everything that I do in both content, playing daily fantasy, supporting the family, basically just everything that I love to do, my passion. She's behind me 100%. And that, if you don't have that, it really doesn't help your situation. So that allows me to say, like, my daughter's 3 and she knows daddy got to go to work. I call it work, right? I'm going to go put the time in. If I'm going to invest this money and put this money behind it, I know, many will say it's gambling and whatever. You can say whatever you want. I don't care. I've got a positive ROI. I put my money in good as best as I can and try and get a positive return. That's what we're all trying to do. We're all grinding the same thing. And that's why, sharing the success is fun, right? You see the wins, we're all doing the same thing, talking on brand with golf. People know I'm a big Ricky Fowler truther. He's always there at the end. It's the joke. He's the butt of the joke where it's, he's always there at the end to congratulate the guy and shake hands when he loses or, comes top 3 and doesn't quite get there. But people might forget, coming top 3 is not a bad thing. I know these tournaments are top heavy, but it is what it is. You got to put yourself in position. Drewby from Daily Roto, a good guy. Colin Drew had an article out this week, just yesterday. Again, we're recording this Friday, but he talked about being in the 1% and just get as many shots up there as you can. And then they'll start to pan out if you can continue after it. So that's really all I'm trying to do. And my family, like I said, my wife, daughter, everyone, they're very supportive, knowing that I got to go in and put the time in. It's all for the good of the family and that it's what I love to do. And in the end, it all works out. And we do still plan for date nights and things like that. And then lastly, to your point, big weekly grinder with NFL and PGA more than daily. So that really allows me to spend a lot of time with the family. Even when I'm working my, quote unquote, in real life job, I can be available after 4 or 5 o'clock in the evening with my family, put my daughter to bed, and then my wife goes to bed 10 o'clock. I just stay up from 10 till 2 and grind out what I got to do and then get on to it the next day.
Yeah, I would imagine that's very important to have the support of everybody. So that makes a lot of sense, and that checks out. But I'm checking out, I'm on your RG page as well, too, as far as your recent results. And it looks like you banked at NASCAR, May 25th, 2020, first out of 35,000 and change. Do you know anything about NASCAR?
A little bit. It's I know they go in circles a lot, and I understand sort of I think with everything, one of the probably most, I would say, underrated pieces is just understanding the scoring rules and how the game works. And with them, you can if you understand game theory, and again, you have to have that experience of doing it in other sports and whatnot, and ownership and all these factors. You just start to apply some of the theory. Doesn't mean it's always going to work out. There's a lot of luck involved in it too. I've actually had a couple of luck spots where I would say, with League of Legends last month, I did a 2-way chop. This month that was an 8-way chop, and that I've had some, good luck in Outlaw. But I think, it's just like the old, Rounders is probably one of my favorite movies. Rounders and Karate Kid. So you mentioned that's when I always got to watch. You joked about the karate on the head, like never been in karate or any mixed martial arts, but I do love the movie Karate Kid. But in Rounders, sort of the idea is it really always luck if the same people keep getting there? And we see it all the time. And, it gets frustrating at times when people are, talking about, oh, it's only because you have 150 entries and whatever. Well, I only play 150 in like the Millie Makers. I'll play 75 to 100 because I feel like in some of these other tournaments, you either have it or you don't. Like in a lot of cases, would those extra 50 to 75 get me on the right pool, or am I really going to add in those 10 other guys? Probably not. You got to take some stands here and there. So I got no problem with it. I sort of let it slide off, but we are grinding away trying to make this happen. And part of it is just understanding the rules of the game, and that's how these things happen.
You finished first in an $8 buy-in January 2nd for a golf tournament. You mentioned 150 lineups. Maybe Twitter's wrong, but I was told, according to Twitter, if you enter 150 lineups, you automatically win. Is that not true? You have all the options covered?
Yeah, and more if you got a wife too. I talked about my wife just now, but yeah, we'll leave that one alone. But I think that's the funny part. And I think a lot of people have joked about it, and some of the people that have taken it more seriously have said the truth on the fact is, interest rates are low right now, all-time lows. Go take a loan. Put your money in. Put your 150 up. It's the DFS GPP scene is the ultimate court, and you could talk about judicial or basketball. Ball don't lie, or judge don't lie. It's whatever comes down. The best is at the top. At the end, we play to win. It doesn't mean it's going to be all skill, but my point is more is if you think you can do it, I definitely advise you to go out and try. There's no doubt that I have losing days, losing weeks, losing months. But in the end, it's all about coming out profitable and just doing the best you can to put your best foot forward each time you're putting those lineups into the mix.
Or just run it in like the quarter arcade. Let's just start with that. Like 150 lineups in the quarter arcade.
Easy. It should be the easier field, the less stakes. Most of the folks at my level can't play $3 and below, and typically things like that. So if you can get $1 or a 50 cent 150 max, to your point, I think that's a great way to start. And it's not just trolling back. It's saying, like, by all means, I want to see people do better. My content's going to be here to try and help people with that situation, whether they want to do 1 to 3 max, 20 max, 150 max, whatever it might be, just to get started in that scene.
What are you more of a? I think you're more of a tournament guy than a cash game guy. Is that correct?
All tournaments, yeah.
So you're all about like ceiling and embracing variance.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I said, I'm sort of looking for things like looking for uniques, trying to build around what you think others are doing, leveraging a pool around ownership and different factors. So really, it just comes down to, like I said, sort of getting all that information throughout the week and then looking at how it's best to put it together. And that'll actually be one of the things starting for Colonial that I'm doing a Wednesday stream on, sort of what the week overall looks like, lineup construction, not giving out lineups or anything, but just saying like how you can build, what's the field look like they're doing, what's the RG ownership say for these guys, and how could you build around that to be a little bit different and leverage certain spots, what I'm looking for.
You mentioned Ricky Fowler. I'm not a golf guy. Why is Ricky Fowler your guy? How do you get a guy in golf? Like, it feels like, again, I don't know, so maybe I'm speaking from ignorance, that it's hard to like get a grasp of personalities. Maybe that's a bad take.
That's the opposite. And I'm the chalk when it comes to who I'm on, my brand as far as golf is. Ricky's the most popular golfer in the world, probably. So it really comes down to that. But it was same as, like I mentioned with Kobe in 97. The reason I got onto Kobe was he was flashy, came into the dunk competition, won it with the Isaiah between the legs dunk. And that was like my thing. I was like, I love that. That's sick. I want to be able to do that. I was doing that in my league game on a layup, of course, but when it came to golf, it was the same thing. When I was first getting into it, this guy's dressing in all orange, a little bit more flashy, but he's humble, treating everyone with respect, stopping to sign autographs, be there, giving it back, right? Like what I'm talking about, paying it forward. To me, that's important in somebody to be able to have those as sort of their, like I mentioned earlier, guiding principles where, you have a stance and you take it and that's just who you are. I can appreciate that. And I think that's one thing about Ricky. And people make fun of him for high-fiving at the end, but I mean, he's normally high-fiving off like a third place finish. So it's, yeah, he didn't get to the top. He didn't win this time, but the variance is there. It will pan out. And in the end, he's doing the right thing. Why wouldn't he congratulate his boy that came in first? It's a big achievement. And I would hope someone's there to congratulate me when I take down that spot.
Hearing about your basketball layup, have you been recruited yet for the upcoming RG basketball?
I'm excited about that, man. I'm ready for that. I'm ready for a couple things. And that was the RG, get-togethers, whether it's for Super Bowl, whatever ends up panning out, and then obviously the RG team party. And then I'm excited for the Hattie B's chicken. The basketball game, is good, but the Hattie B's chicken, the Nashville hot chicken, that's one of the places I've never been. I'm excited to go and definitely want to try that chicken out. I've been watching some YouTube videos on it, getting hyped up for it.
I'll have you know, I'm not here to make you jealous or anything. Hattie B's is like 0.6 miles from me. I can walk to it. It's right on the corner for me. But I'm a total wimp. I get it Southern style, which means no spice at all. I don't understand the concept of heat. I understand. I feel like that's a bad pun, but it's a hot take. I don't get
understand people that love the heat, like the what the clock or whatever it's called. I forget what the name of it is. Like I wouldn't go with that. If it's gonna burn my cheeks off while I'm trying to enjoy it, I'm not really excited about that. But I don't mind a little spice, Dean. I like some spice.
All right, yeah, meet somewhere in the middle. I'm sure there's a compromise you'll enjoy. And yeah, my brother just visited here a week or two ago, and he said, we got to go to Hattie B's. So it got me. Well, I was going to say it got me out of the house. It did not get me out of the house. We had it delivered. And it's just,
yeah, I think you were talking to Chopper about this, and it got delivered to your doorstep still, but it was because your brother was in town. It worked out.
There you go. Thanks for listening to the podcast. That was a fun conversation.
I love it, man. It was a good one.
So you mentioned outlaw golf. I'm kind of curious about this, and I had this fun little scenario played out in my head. I was talking to Noto about outlaw golf, and he was doing some content on it. Is it just it's a bunch of amateur guys, or maybe some college guys, or guys trying to like break into the pros, get to the next level? And he was suggesting it's $900, and you can just basically buy your way into the tournament. I guess it depends upon the tournament, but what do you? I mean, have you been playing the outlaw? Because I know you've been playing all these other fringe stuff. I imagine you've been dabbling as well.
Definitely love the outlaw. It's been good to me too. Had a really close call just this past week. I got 3rd and 5th in the big one. And so that was close, but it's like what Noto said is correct. I listened to that one the day before the chop one, and anybody can really get into it, but it's kind of like, DFS, you'd have but even worse, because there is guys in there that are like Korn Ferry Tour guys, like strong players that actually play really good golf. You're not going to have a good chance. They're probably better off putting their $900 on DraftKings from what they know about golfers and being big fans of golf and trying to work it out that way for some of them. But if you were in DFS, like anybody can go join a 1K tonight, but going up against, Empire, Mock Love, and all these dudes, and Noto and those types, are you really going to have your money in good? Probably not. So it's not really advised, but the tour, it's filled up with a lot of minor league guys. And then a lot of guys are just trying to stay fresh for what's upcoming, right? When golf comes back around and get into some and qualify for some of these bigger ones.
I had this completely absurd half-baked idea of like, I'm a terrible golfer, but why can't is it worth $900 to have DraftKings put a price on me?
If you got the money to throw around, Dean, $900 for that. Like I said, I think you're better off joining a couple of put your 3 max in the $300 and make some real money.
But imagine the amazing tweets I would get. People will be so angry at me for shooting like a 220.
Yeah, no one would be rostering you, Dean.
No, some people nobody knows who they're rostering in this thing.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I think with your history and your name out there, I think it would get spread pretty quickly. You'd be dead in the water.
Oh man, and is it even on TV or it's like Periscoped, right?
They're doing a really good job of it actually with Periscope. The scoring and the updates from DK and all that can be a bit of a hot topic or separate topic. I really don't like that factor of it because when you got $20 in, who cares? Just let it run out. But when you got some money invested and you're trying to see how this plays out, like it's the worst timing. It's the very end of the sweat when you've got the other day when I was sweating the top 10, I had 3 up there hoping that one gets there. I'm having to do all the math myself on the sidelines and looking off the Outlaw because Outlaw's doing a great job updating it and having the Periscope. But I want to see what does that equate to on the DK leaderboard. Now I have to math out each lineup separately. That's a little bit of a pain, to do that.
Yeah, you mentioned, by the way, FanDuel. I guess you pivoted mostly to DK now. Is that you play both, but DK is your specialty in FanDuel? Speaking of live scoring, some of their lives, KBO doesn't do it until the end. Like that's the sweat. Like you don't.
That's how they do it with Outlaw too. It's the same way with Outlaw. It's whatever. I mean, they're doing their thing, I guess, but it seems like their focus is a little bit more on the fantasy side of things. But great site, been around forever. I definitely still support them. It's just, like you said, where's the action? Where's the big money? The Millie Maker is going to be for Colonial on DraftKings, and that's where I'm going to be.
Yeah, we were talking about tweets, and I was talking about the idea of getting some mean tweets. Can you think of anything? You've been doing content for a while, and obviously your intentions are always for the best. And you said, hey, you're going to have good days, you're going to have bad days. The idea is to have the good days outweigh the bad days. But somebody catches you on the wrong day. Is there any sort of mean tweet that you can recall? Somebody sort of saying like, "Oh, you're a total fraud," or "You don't know what you're talking about," or some sort of.
You get them, yeah. You get them time to time, right? Like the most reason, like I said, the hot topic is definitely like max entering and people calling you over that. And if it's funny, like you don't even if I win like 15 grand in a tournament and post like there's just the max enter. If I did max enter, it couldn't even equate to that. It's just the screenshot to show the win is sort of, again, it's pride, it's achievement. You kind of want others to be engaged and go on that journey with you. It's not all about, I'm not putting it, by the way, come to RotoGrinders and follow me where you're going to automatically win 15 grand because I tweeted this. It's not what it's all about, right? We're just sharing in the love, being able to get out there and sort of your own sense of pride and achievement. I do like that personally. I understand what can be behind it and how other people use it maliciously and whatnot. But, and then I understand also the marketing side. Some people need to use it for business and that's fine. It's just all how you put it out there and what your intent is. But I think, the multi-entering thing, the other day, someone said something like you max entering POS, but that was the whole DM. So I leave my DMs open so people can happily follow me, reach out to me on Twitter at ToeTagginTambo, hit me up anytime. I don't mind. But when you just get that as your DM, it's like you max entering POS. It's like, okay, sure. Like whatever you think, like it is what it is. I'm just doing my, I'm trying to do my best. That's all.
Yeah. It's with everything, there's nothing it's 100% good or 100% bad, right? With anything, Twitter's great if you use it for you, but of course you're going to come across some things that are sort of goofy, or
you want to have those haters, man. You got to have some. It's no fun if you don't.
You got the chip in the shoulder, man. You point to the trophy. Say just take a screenshot.
MJ told you. MJ was making up stories in Last Dance, talking about it, going out to make up a story about a guy to go out and win a game and dominate. So I take it as motivation, like you said. You got to have haters. It's always fun, and it's fun to mess around with them time to time. But I typically let it slide off and just let them be. I don't like blocking people. I like muting people. So I know everyone's on the fence when it comes to that. I'll mute more than I'll block. I don't really care about them. I'll mute their situation.
They're screaming into the vortex. They're screaming into just a black hole. They have no idea.
It makes it more fun. They really want a response, right?
I don't know if I ever used the mute button. And as far as blocking, I would say I have less than 10 people blocked. And several of those people that I blocked were because people putting out spoilers. Come on, man. We live in a society. I mean, people like telling you exactly what's happening in the TV shows, like the minute it happens. I don't need that in my life. We have DVRs.
That's right.
You're not. Are you a spoiler? Is this going to be a thing?
I'm not a spoiler guy. I'm against them. Even what happens up in Canada is with the stream, because we, for whatever reason, have to stream NFL Red Zone, and I got notifications on my phone, so I got to turn my phone over during the games because people are tweeting out. I don't know, like people love to live tweet every touchdown or whatever. I don't have any of the ones like NFL touchdown or RG touchdown turned on where you get the automatic update, but those are usually behind the stream. But people that are getting the stream faster than me, they're like, "Oh my God, this just happened." Now I'm about to watch it. I hate that. So I just turn the phone upside down and get closer to it during the sweat at the end.
I had to use my cable company to not carry the red zone. So I had to buy Slingbox, and Slingbox is like 30 seconds or a minute behind or whatever. And the world's smallest violin is playing for us. Like there are much worse things.
Of course. Yeah.
And like these things being spoiled for us. But yeah, it does ruin the experience. If you're on Twitter, it's like, oh, there's a touchdown. Oh, and there's the touchdown. And it's
hate that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the little tilts, and that for baseball as well too. Like you see a home run, on Twitter, and my baseball stream is always behind as well. I'm watching online by 30 seconds or a minute or so. Now I just want some baseball or just want some sports. I'm not grinding out the marbles or.
Yeah, we'll get you on the golf, Dean. We'll get you on the golf.
I will fire at tickets. Like I'll try to get a ticket in anything, a quarter, 50 cents, $1. I'll buy tickets to anything, and then I must have like 15 tickets on layaway for something. And what do we have coming up in a couple of weeks? What's the contest? I know it's a Million Maker. Yeah,
so $20 Million Maker, pretty standard, large field, top heavy, $1 million up top. I think it's 150 or 100 to second. I got to double check that. But then they got a 555 as well, which is pretty nice. It's about just over 2,000 people, much more balanced structure, still $250,000 up top. So it's all they've shown us so far, but it looks like it's going to be pretty good. And then the good news is, like, with the way the foreseeable future looks, it looks like there's going to be possibly even more Millie Makers after that. They'll just keep running them because golf has become so popular, and hence the needing the content, wanting to do new content on RotoGrinders. It's going to be big for us with myself, Noto, Cards, Drew Matthews is on there, a bunch of other guys that are filling in on conviction plays, value plays, etc. So really looking forward to it. And I think that's going to be big for the next few weeks, especially in golf.
You were third in an NFL Million Maker. You were 3 top 20s as far as PGA. How close did you get? Did you ever start dreaming? Like, was this down to the wire? Did you close strong, or did you kind of falter?
Two of them were really close. The NFL one, obviously finishing in third, was like the ultimate scenario because everyone had just Jimmy Graham, and I had him paired with Russell Wilson. So couldn't ask for a more in the top 5 or whatever. And, couldn't ask for a more dream experience. I'm sitting in third. They get one more drive. It worked out that they get one more drive. Like, this is the best case scenario. Jimmy Graham dropped like a 10-yard pass that was worth an extra $60,000 because third ended up being 40. Second was 100. It was really top eight. First was 100, or first was $1 million, obviously. And so he dropped that pass. I was pissed about that, but your heart jumps because that was for a lot of money. And then they had a Hail Mary at the end, and it was actually dialed. Like, they were definitely close enough to get it. It was all day. They had it. And it was going right to Jimmy Graham. And you can't make this up. You can go back and watch the game. If you check the date, it was against the Redskins. Go watch the last scene. It's crazy. And it went through Jimmy Graham's hands, which was like the $1 million. And then it went into the Redskins. I forget who the cornerback was at the time or who was there. It might not even been their cornerback. It went interception into his arms, which is going to cost me, because that's the downside of having Russell Wilson, that it's going to cost me $15,000 and drop me to $25K for fourth. And as he's falling to the ground, he drops it and it falls out. And I'm almost like relieved at that point, because you saw $1 million, you saw 40, and then you saw 15, or sorry, 25, down 15, and then you saw the 40. So long-winded, but yeah, in the end, it was actually quite a good sweat right to the end, and it was really close.
you see that in real time. It's slowed down. Like the money is like being debits and credits are going real quick. And
you don't get a feeling like that though. Like your heart is actually, for me, it was up top. Like it felt higher in my, like you could just feel it. And you're like, it's about to happen. It could happen. And you just had the sweat of the 100K. If he just catches that ball and falls to the ground the previous play, and then they have to go to the Hail Mary and it happens to be to him in the zone. I'm like, oh my gosh, here we go. And it didn't pan out.
So lots of crazy things happen when you play this for a long time, obviously. And you were talking about before how it's just funny how our brains work. We're more apt to remember the times we blew it or we just lost, as opposed to the times where, it's like you remember the photo finishes you lose, the ones you win, you kind of forget for whatever reason. But take me through that emotional struggle. I don't know if struggle is not the right word, but when you win, what did you end up winning here? 25,000, you said?
And that one I won 40,000. My biggest win was 100,000, and I got first and third, so it was actually 120 in the PGA dog leg. That was a crazy story too for a win. If you want to have that,
we'll get that in a second. But I'm just curious, when you win, when you have the life is about expectations, right? And you were really well positioned to potentially get that million maker, and then all of a sudden when you win 40K, it's this sort of weird feeling where you're almost kind of sort of somewhat disappointed you won 40K, and like. In theory, you should be able to step back and just say, this was a very successful week, and I'm grateful, I am thankful. But at the same time, you're like, well, and I talked to Head Chopper about this too, because he should have, if you played out 100 times, he should have won a million maker there at the end, 99, 98 times out of 100. It just didn't work out for him that one time. But how do you have the best, what's your perspective on that? When you win the 40K, when you probably could have sort of won more?
I think it comes with time and where you're at in sort of you want to call it your semi-professional or whatever. I play, I consider it semi-pro. You want to consider where you are in that, because like Head Chopper said, and like what I'll say is I was at a spot where I knew that could happen. So, yes, it sucks. And like I said, it's world's smallest violin. It would have been life-changing versus that, but you just got to keep grinding. Use that as the motivation. Look at it. Like you said, be grateful. You still got third. You still got 40,000. How many people could do a 40 grand right now? And there's more opportunities ahead. But, I've had times where, in my early stages where I thought I was basically winning like 250K and my guy gets injured, or like that live final experience where you think your life is over, because it's like, that was everything. That was going to be my life-changing moment, my ability to move forward and do what I want to do full time and get involved in this. And you just got to be patient. Look where I'm at now. Look with Head Chopper's story, a guy I truly respect who last year went on to win the Millie, even had to sweat that out in overtime, and it could have went the wrong way again. It just could have. And he knows that going in, but it depends on where you're at and how many times it takes to get there. And you just got to keep grinding away and get back to it.
Give me the $100,000 golf story.
Yeah, I only bring that up because you were talking about craziest, chance of a win. That was my craziest big win. And that was a little bit crazier story since it was my daughter's birthday, or first birthday. And I'm having to leave the birthday to live sweat this. So that was a touchy situation. I made sure I was available most of the case. But at one point I just had to say to my wife, like, come on, baby, I got to see this happen, because I don't want to, not that I'm going to jinx it or I'm superstitious, but I felt like this is huge. And it just started going bad. The minute I went down for like the final 2 holes, and it went really bad on 16 or final 3 holes, 16 and 17. And then basically it came down to 18, and it was at the Houston Open. I needed Ian Poulter to drain like an 18-foot putt to even have a chance. Because if he drains this putt, it forces a playoff where I then need to win in the playoff. And he makes the 18-foot putt, pounds his chest. It's a chance. It's the week where if he makes it, he gets to go to the Masters because they screwed up point scoring for him. So he needed this win. He ends up getting into the playoff and winning it on the first hole. And that got me first and third. And it was amazing, right? It was 120,000. It's my biggest win ever. It was a great week. Speaking to E. Hafner earlier, again, get another guy. Can't not respect the guy. He's an amazing player. Truly respect him. And I ended up edging him out. So it was kind of like that follow-up. You talk about things going full circle. That was another one. Just another thing to be like, again, it's not me versus him. It's just like, you want to win. He wants to win. It's just cool to have it come back around where it's like, this time I got the best and I got it in good. And I ended up taking down first and third. And it was a huge win, huge change for myself, my family, everything going on with us. So it was awesome at the time.
Yeah. Talking to DFS guys, they always seem to get a case of IBS. So just sneaking off to the bathroom as much as possible to change lineups.
Honesty is the best policy. You got to go with that. Just be honest. Look, there's a lot on the line. We got to check it out. And that comes with that good support system. Like I say, you want to get that put in place first.
Again, just a few minutes. We're going to give that. We're going to tell you what's going on as far as the promotion for the podcast, the Fantasy Golf Degenerates. Before we step aside and get out of here, we tease at the top. We'll make sure to say it before we leave. I did want to get some of your favorites. You mentioned You mentioned Rounders. That's an amazing movie. Is that one of your favorites? Is there another one that's kind of your go-to?
Yeah, those like that, Scarface, Karate Kid, sort of like underdog stories, and ones where like guys have something to prove. I know, Scarface a little off the wall, but a little bit too aggressive maybe. But just I like them for whatever reason. They're those movies that when they come on, you just sort of got to devote the time and put it aside and put the movie on and watch it. So, Rounders is, again, like, to me, it's just because it's a lot to do with, like if you look at daily fantasy sports, betting, things like that. So anyone who grinds heavy all the time, it's part of the game, right? You got to be able to grind it out and get to the next level. Karate Kid, sort of the, why am I doing wiping down the car, wax on, wax off? What's that got to do with karate? It doesn't necessarily have anything to do with it, but it's part of process, making some progress with what you're doing and then getting to that next step and then being able to see the success come from all the work you put in the background. So I think it does, those type of movies, and then Scarface, the up and comer story, come from nothing, can be something. It all relates to sort of my passion in DFS and sports betting in the industry that we're in.
You mentioned the wax on, wax off. I wasn't sure if you meant the Daniel LaRusso Karate Kid or the one that Will Smith's kid was starring.
No,
of course, it was
no love. Like Karate Kid 3 barely gets love. 1 and 2 are on the chart. 1 being my favorite, 2 still being pretty good with the ice block chopping scene when he puts that's mainly because there's betting involved. And Mr. Miyagi comes in with the boss, a little money on the table. He's going to do it for this much. It's going to be extra bricks. I like those types of situations and stories. So those two hit home the most, but Jalen Smith or whatever, that gets no love. And Karate Kid 3 was just a money grab. They've even admitted it. So I'm good with the first two.
And you know what? We completely neglected the next Karate Kid, which nobody saw, but it starred Hilary Swank, who went on to winning 2 Oscars. Who saw that coming?
Now. Yeah.
Nobody saw the next Karate Kid.
Nobody saw that.
Just sort of popped in my head for whatever reason. You mentioned your favorite athlete. I always like to ask somebody's favorite athlete as a child, as an adult. It was Kobe. I guess that's your go-to.
Yeah, big time. The killer mentality. I wasn't really in the Jordan era. Like, getting to watch The Last Dance recently was incredible for me because, you always knew about it, but I was born after, some of the stuff. Like, when he was coming to the league is sort of when I was born. So it's like you're trying to catch up as much as possible. And I've always been a fan, and you could dig back, which I've done, but you got to sort of, to get fully immersed in the 10-part docuseries, which, all sports bias aside, I think was one of the best docuseries I've ever seen. Just the way it was done so well, and all the stories and the amount of interviews of strong people, and just being able to get the real story. And I know some people say there's, it's a story for another day, of some of them are fake stories, and is it the flu game, the hangover game, whatever, but and he now says the food poisoning game, I guess, but it doesn't matter. It's just cool to see the greatness. And Kobe, to me, was a prime example. And Kobe said it in one of those episodes where, like, you're not trying to be necessarily the next him. You are involved because of them. So even, playing DFS and relating it back, you're looking at these guys, the head choppers and the guy, the CSU Rams, all these guys back in the day that were playing to get the thing going and kicking it up. And the fact they're still doing it is awesome. But, you're sort of striving to be at that level. And, I want to be that person for somebody else. If I can help one person, change their life and make it better, that's what I want to do. Really. That's truly what I love to do.
Yeah. ESPN, that 30 for 30 team. I know ESPN gets a lot of critiques for certain things they do. And, their first and 10 or whatever, but they do an amazing job with their 30 for 30 series. And Horace Grant wasn't pleased with the way that turned out. He was
for sure.
He took umbrage, and Jordan's company was involved with that in some way. And of course, obviously there's a lot of questions.
Like we said, there's always going to be haters. Yeah. You got to have, and it is what it is. Whether it's true, false, right, wrong, or indifferent, it's fine. It's always going to be out there. But bottom line, it was a solid product, and I would watch again. It was
excellent. I thoroughly enjoyed it. And if nothing else, the gifts he's given us, like the gifts and the memes that Jordan has given to the internet community. And I've said this before on this podcast, and I just want to watch a channel of Jordan just watching things on his iPad. That's what I want to watch.
Oh yeah, the scene of him with the headphones, just bobbing and weaving, and they put it to every song now. Like, you can watch every single one of those. There's an account, and they just keep putting different songs to it, and they all line up. It's amazing.
Do you have a favorite live sports moment in attendance? Or you're mostly at the bar at home watching the game?
I can't. I mean, the live moments are the ones I won money on, but I get those weren't live in person. But my best live sports experience was, I would say there's 2. One is the Waste Management Phoenix Open, just being there on 17. I've gone a couple times. That's incredible. But my best one is the Super Bowl. I went to the Patriots versus the Seahawks, the classic. Should have ran the ball with Lynch. Interception. I was in the building for that one down in Arizona with my uncle. He actually joked about it at the wedding, back to that putting story, to tie it full circle. He said, if I miss this putt, I'll buy you tickets to the Super Bowl, because he lives in Arizona.
Oh, wow.
He has a place down there. He was going regardless because he's like 55 and had never been to a Super Bowl. And it worked out too, because he's actually a lifelong Patriots fan, which not that crazy to see the Patriots then in a Super Bowl, but he didn't know he was going to go regardless. And he ended up missing the putt, maybe on purpose, just to help us out as a wedding gift. But he gifted the ticket, took care of us. We stayed at their place. The wife came down. Everyone was good. We went. The ladies stayed home. Him and I went, and he almost had a heart attack twice. I had to put him on patrol there for a little bit. He wasn't even drinking because he was so worried and nervous at the end. And when they got the win, he was just going crazy. So it's like a kid again to see. Funny.
You're a Baltimore fan. What side are you on, or did you just wait? You make it interesting with a wager, or what?
I actually hated both sides because I can't stand either of those teams, but it was definitely much more painful witnessing how many Seahawks fans, I'll offend some people here. I apologize, but I just find it's like so bandwagon. I don't know. I don't want to say the wrong thing. Just to me, it was like there was so many of them.
Man. It's fine.
Yeah, it was just brutal.
They're annoying fans.
Yeah, they're not my favorite fans. So what it came down to was that, and they were, there were some good guys around us. We had a good time, and there was guys from Boston right beside us, and there was a dude in front of us that had a home and away Seahawks jersey that he was changing as they go on offense and defense. And I said, you better flip around because the game's over. They're on defense now, buddy. The game's over. So I was kind of happy for my uncle. I was cheering for him just as he bought me the tickets.
I've never been to a live golf tournament. What's that like?
Been to a couple now, only really have two opinions on it. One is really off the wall being at the Phoenix Open with how, party atmosphere and wild, sort of like Happy Gilmore style out there. It's a lot of fun. I only really recommend you need to go once because you'll get the feel for it. But the Honda Classic I went to this past year was just incredible. The crew that went down, a lot of the DFS industry was down there from the golf side of things. They had the DFS Golf Open. It was an incredible time. And that tournament is just amazing. It's more like I don't want to say major-like atmosphere, but it's much tighter with the scoring. Comes down to the wire, and it didn't disappoint again. It came right down to the very end. Sungjae Im got the win. My partner, Kenny Kim, with the Fantasy Golf Degenerates podcast, he's Korean, and so he was cheering. He was speaking to Sungjae Im in Korean. And he was acknowledging us, and it was just incredible to be there for it all, and then see him to get the win in the end was awesome.
I was taking a peek at your Twitter before we went live here, and I believe you tell me, is that you and your wife dressing up as Carol Baskin and Joe Exotic?
No, that's actually the Ropers. That's the again, we don't want to cross that line, but that's them on their Instagram post. I said, life must be good, right? They're having a good time now. So
that wasn't you. Oh, I did a really quick peek.
I'm not a big dress up guy. I'm not a costume themed guy, Dean. That's not me.
Is Halloween not big in Canada? Is that not a thing up there?
It's big for my daughter. It's good. I'll dress her up, but and if she wants me to dress up, I will. But that's sort of keep it inside the household.
Is there anything we've binge watched in the last few months that we can recommend?
I don't know. I like Ozark, so I crushed it out when it came out again. The new season. I like seeing that sort of role for him, and you can see like it's a little bit darker, so I kind of like that in the background of it. And then, like I said, with the Last Dance was good. Not a lot of other shows I'm into. I really miss live sports. That's really what it comes down to.
Around the corner, hopefully soon enough. Oh, you had this take on Twitter. This might be a hot take. You're talking about the NFL draft being full of wide receiver hype. And you're saying the best teams, and there might be some slant in here because you like the Ravens. Now we know that. The best. And also, by the way, you're putting Andrews in the same conversation as Kelsey and Kittle. Come on. I know Andrews is good, but you're basically saying that wide receivers don't matter? I don't know if you're joking or not.
No, I'm joking, but it's more of just a play on, like, it's just they always do get all the hype. And it was just funny to me that, that you've got those teams like the Chiefs and the Ravens, all that where their tight ends have huge years, and that pays off. I mean, Kittle and Kelsey are the best too. Like I said, put Andrews in there just because he had a great year. And obviously I'm a Ravens homer. I don't think that's going to continue. And he's got injury possibility and proneness. But I think that when you look at that, it is a big decision and it does matter. And it sort of pans out. I'm not saying tight ends matter, but it has mattered. And it's very small sample size, but it's funny the way it works and it can pay off.
Yeah. And Andrews is so tilting because I like to look at like snap count and just routes run and things like that. And I'm sure he's never. They have like 19 different tight ends. They got rid of Hurst though, right? Isn't Hurst gone? Yeah,
they've toned it down. And like you say, but it was funny last season because you're right. You'd look at it and he'd have like 20% of the snap count or something, but he'd be catching like 8 for 108 and 2 touchdowns.
I much appreciate your time. We got about an hour or so. I'm glad everybody stuck around and listened to this. And do want to mention, I'll give it to you. Actually, tell us what the promotion you have going on with your podcast.
Yeah, so Kenny and I will have the podcast moved across. You guys will see that. We'll tweet it out, everything like that. But DraftKings has so graciously given us a 555 ticket that I mentioned earlier. The great field, great payout structure, something that not everybody's bankroll will allow, and I understand that. So it's cool to be able to give away a ticket to that. We're going to have a very simple contest. It's going to be a retweet follow basic as it can get. Put it out there, spread the word that we're now with the RotoGrinders Podcast Network, bringing the pot across. Follow myself and Kenny for the announcement, and we'll pick a random winner after we do our Colonial podcast, where we do our normal breakdowns, his cash game cornerstones, my pivots for the tournaments, all that sort of thing. And then we'll give it away and have it into the account by Tuesday, so people have full time to get it ready for the Wednesday, Thursday, whatever it is, to get the tournament kicked off that week.
Sounds like good times. Tyler, I much appreciate your time. You've impressed me. This was good. I can't wait to check out your content. I do dabble in the golf streets whenever I win tickets. All I do is I check out the expert survey. I read Noto's column. I read cards and stuff. And now I'm going to read your stuff. So it's been good times for sure. Much appreciated. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, and welcome to the RG family. That is Tyler Tamboline, also known as ToeTagginTambo. It's a lot of T's. I was Dean. Thanks for listening. This was the Morning Grind. We're out of here. Over.